Hey, 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 Vern.
Hey!
So you're all self-taught, learning everything that you've done on guitar?
I guess you'd say that. I was very lucky. When I started with that book, I went to a conference in California, and I had just begun building the first guitar. And I met dozens of well-known, internationally known luthiers, and I met one person in particular who I knew who it was. She was one of the few female. And to my shock, as we talked, she asked, well, what's it like building from the book? Because I hear about this new book. And then at the end of the conversation, she said, if you have any questions or problems, ask.
Nice.
And I was like, yes, really? Okay.
Cool.
So a month goes by, and I was stuck. I'm like, I don't know what to do. There was no internet at the time. There was no, there was nothing. So I sent her an email, and she answered, and that began a couple-year mentorship where every time I got stuck, which was often,
Wow.
she'd help me.
That's great.
And, instrument making before this current generation was a very much closed skill.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't want to share it,
Mm-hmm.
Stradivarius's formula for violin varnish, it was proprietary. Nobody wanted to share it with anybody. So instrument makers, you either learned because you taught yourself from a book if you were lucky, or you were an apprentice to somebody. That was the only way to learn. There was no videos on the internet and schools. I mean, there are schools in the United States and Europe now all over the place for lutherie.
Oh, there are?
Yeah, but there weren't then. So no, I was fortunate. I was self-taught with a mentor.
So now they sell the kits through Fender and through Martin.
Martin's always had kits.
And what do you think about a guy like me to build something like that? What's the level of skill needed?
A lot less. I haven't built a kit, so I don't want to say anything negative because people love it, and it is, it saves a lot of steps. But I don't know. I guess it depends on the person and what they're trying to accomplish. Are they trying to learn how to really build guitars? And for many of them, that's a good first step. Are they simply trying to make, their own version, let's say, of a Martin D28, and they say, I don't want to spend however many thousands of dollars on a Martin D28. I can do it with a kit.
Right, that's where I would be at. Exactly, because let's face it, I was always a terrible woodworker. I took woodworking class, and I don't think you could have a worse woodworker than me. Nothing was square, nothing was straight. Oh my gosh.
Well, and of course, when we were in high school, first of all, you had wood shop, which I'm sure you don't anymore.
Right.
But they also had planes that hadn't been sharpened since the dawn of time, So you're going, how is this supposed to work? And then the first time I used a sharp plane, I go, that's what it was supposed to be like.
Oh.
But they weren't like that, the chisels that were, anyway. So, it depends on the person's feelings, because the kit thing has become huge, and you can buy kits for just about every kind of guitar imaginable.
Right.
And it isn't easier, and of course it's a way for the vendors to sell you a lot of tools. Because now, to do it, you feel like you got to buy, so LMI or StuMac or whatever sells you a couple $100 worth of tools with the kit, and you may or may not be hooked. And if you're hooked, in the next guitar you make on your own without a kit, or maybe you go, this was good enough, I've got a nice guitar. So, in our case now, the next step is we have to crown the frets. There's a crowning file.
Oh.
So, I'm sorry, I'm going to get that little thingy back. Because by filing it, I've now flattened the fret.
Right.
So we have to put the crown back in the fret.
Oh, so it just sits right on top of the fret.
Mhm.
Wow, that's interesting. Huh. So it's just a rounded file with a guide in the
That's
middle,
right.
basically. Okay.
It's just a round.
That's pretty cool, though. Really, it's special for that.
Right. This is specific to this function, and if you do any kind of fret work, I mean, I suppose in theory you could freehand it, but my goodness, that'd be
Oh,
a
right.
pain in the butt.
Right. So like you say, it's so specialized that I've never even had the privilege to watch anybody do any of this stuff. So,
Well, and I didn't either. And back in those days, now there's a boom, but back in those days there was not. I remember when I made my first guitar and I took it into some guitar stores locally, and they were just amazed. You made, not only did you make a guitar, which nobody does, you made an arch top. Nobody does that.
Right.
I was like too stupid to know I couldn't do it.
That's probably good.
Well, it was. But whereas now, there's a lot of very skilled amateurs, and almost every woodworker I know says, I want to make an instrument, and they do.
Great.
Even though I have the book, you're still trying to figure out what it means.
Oh, absolutely.
So eventually Benedetto, the guy, he put out videos, and that made it a lot easier. And of course I had my mentor, and then of course the internet exploded and everything went on YouTube, and suddenly, you didn't have to necessarily go to a conference to see a demonstration.
And I think that's great. If I had half those tools when I was a kid, I'd probably played guitar 15 years earlier than it would have took me to learn it, right?
Exactly. I'm just crowning them all
That's fine.
just to see, in case any of them have just over the 20 years flattened out a little.
Right. So crowning helps it to fret easier because it's rounded and you're not putting that much metal on the string when it touches?
Just as with the nut and the saddle, there should be one point of contact. So if you have a broad contact, it's not good. You want the frets to be at one point.
Makes sense.
I mean, you will know a nut slopes away.
Oh, it does.
Right. Why is that? For exactly the same reason. You want the one point of contact where the string contacts the nut. If you have a flat nut here, then the string would be liable to just lay on that hole,
Okay.
Same thing here.
Oh, that's great, Dave. Good.
So now we'll polish them.
Cool. So is that like an eraser?
It is.
Okay.
It's an abrasive in the form of a rubber eraser.
Okay. So that takes off the scoring and gives it an easier way to polish. Okay. And then it helps your strings probably to contact without less
partly
worry.
It's aesthetic, but partly it's functional that you have.
Yeah, I would have never thought to use that. That's a good idea.
This is I didn't. Traditionally, you use some kind of light sandpaper, and that still works well. But these things that came out, I don't know, 10 years ago,
That's fantastic.
And they're just easy.
Yeah, and you're not going to worry about hurting the wood or anything. So, yeah. I've been putting this off for 20 years, having this setup done, and I should have just done it and just taken it in. But I don't know. I've done everything myself with my hands my whole life. I've fixed bikes, I've fixed engines, I redid cars.
Oh, yes.
And so for me to do something, it would be like, I got to try to do it first at least. And then if I screw it up, then I can take it to somebody else. So, and for you being locked in, I miss having a workshop. I had a kick-ass shop back home. It was 4,000 square foot.
Wow.
and it was stick built. It was premium. I had a frame rack, I had a paint mixing bench, I had my own full automotive paint booth. It was a full setup. So for me not to turn tools, that's pretty weird. I really miss that.
Well, now you have these tools.
Right. And at some point, when I am able to find a girl that I'm in love with and I'm married, then at that point I can settle down and get a little place and have a little workshop. And that's...
Well, this was amazing. This was because my workshops in Portland were always this hole in the basement. I mean, I had, I'd have a 10 foot or 12 foot by 3 foot space. I was amazed at what I accomplished. And even the bedroom in my rental house before was more luxurious than that.
Right.
So this is just like my dream come true.
It is a great little shop you built here, Dave. I want to take a little shot of it for everybody to see. So Dave's got this really cool little shop that he built at his new house that him and his wife Jana live at. And this is his little space of heaven here, little piece of heaven. And so how big is your shop, Dave? What's the size for your studio?
What did we do here? I think we did, it's like 25 square meters.
Okay, so 10 foot by 12 foot or?
See, I know meters now. It was like 6 times 4 meters, something like that.
So 3 foot per meter.
Yeah, a little bit more than that. So, yeah, it's well, we can measure it, but...
That's okay. I'm just kind of getting a rough...
In the Philippines, when you build, it's all by square meters. I remember it was somewhere between 20 and 25 square meters.
I was always taught 3 foot to the meter.
Almost.
Okay. Oh, so it is a little shorter? It's not a perfect 3 foot? Oh, I didn't know that.
It's longer than... A meter is more than 3 feet.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh. See, I learned something there today, too.
Just a little bit.
Just enough to spank me. That's okay, because that's how I learn. When I grew up, I watched everybody fixing things, and that's how I learned. I watched my dad cook. I watched my grandma cook. I watched my neighbor fix bicycles, and then I picked up on that, and I started doing that. So I wish I had more mentors, more people to watch growing up. I would have even had more skills.
Well, exactly. This kind of thing, so much of what I spent years learning on my own. The first time I saw a video about, let's say, a particular function, I go, that's the way you're supposed to use that tool. I just had to figure it out.
Right.
So yes, that does make a lot of difference in all skills.
Yeah, YouTube is amazing that it's actually connected us.
Now it can be the opposite, because now that I know something, I'll go and I'll look at a video and go, shouldn't do it that way.
Okay. So you're seeing a lot of bad information then. Well,
everybody has a different way. I don't know if that means it's bad, but sometimes you roll your eyes and you go, no, that's not the best way to do it. But between all the videos, you find a combination of the best methods.
I mean, I had my own way of doing auto body, and my thing was always watching somebody else and seeing what they're doing differently, and then I would acquire that skill and go to the next guy. What's he doing that I don't have?
Right, and pick and choose what works for you.
Right, and I would leapfrog my abilities off of watching other people, and hopefully I could have somebody stand on my shoulders over time by building up all these skills that a lot of people stopped learning. A lot of people, they'll get to a point and then they will stop learning.
That's true.
And they'll get all, this is how it's done, I'm never going to learn anything else. And for me, I thought, let's just keep an open mind, because we can always keep climbing. There is no limit to how high you can climb and how well you can become. And so I've applied that with everything in my life.
That's a good philosophy.
Yeah. So Flitz, so that's the aluminum polish.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a little bit of last.
Yeah, they look really good. They're coming up real nice. So those are aluminum frets, are they? Or stainless?
This is
what do they use?
Nickel silver.
Oh. So silver mixed with nickel?
I guess.
Or nickel mixed with... Which is the predominant one, do you think?
I don't know.
Because nickel's really hard.
Silver. Well, I guess... I'm honestly not sure which has more. What's the percentage? I just know traditional frets are nickel silver, and a lot of modern frets now are stainless steel. People are making just the advantage is You probably never have to do a fret job like what we're doing now.
Oh.
The disadvantage is they're hard as hell to work. But a lot of customers will ask. The fret material is usually a lot more expensive in stainless than in nickel silver. So in the Philippines, for most people, that's not very practical. But in the U.S., a lot of people are replacing with stainless.
Right.
So, we did a quick and dirty fret job. That's got you pretty good.
Good. I've taken pretty good care of this guitar over the years.
But it's 20
So,
years. I mean,
right.
Never used it, so it wasn't,
It needed it. It really did. It needed some love. I guess what I'm trying to say is, even taking care of it, it still needs maintenance, is kind of what you're getting at. Yep.
And particularly in a humid environment, you're going to clean the body periodically. You're going to clean the neck periodically. Clean the frets off of any crud. On an electric guitar in particular, there's a lot of metal hardware. The screws get rusted. I mean, you'll look at it, and the screws are rusted through and through, and they're frozen.
Oh my gosh.
Or they're stripped just because of moisture.
Yeah, here it's the most horrible climate you could have for anything metal. It's just notorious. So Dave is making a custom fit bone saddle for it, which will help the tone quality because of the way the sound transfer will resonate through the body will be different with something denser than something that is synthetically made.
Well, and also since we've got these grooves now, it'll be better without them.
So that's hurting the tone too?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little.
Because too much is going through the plastic, or it's probably
the string really ideally sits on top of the bone at that leading edge.
Okay.
Sometimes you put a little groove just to get the string in there, but most of the time it'll just sit on top.
So this is the guitar you're building here. This one
It is. One of these days I'll get back to it.
So it's a one of these days guitars.
Right, at this point it is.
And what woods did you use on this one?
It's black walnut for the back and sides.
So is that like a parlor body? Is that?
No, it's an OM. Yeah, it's an OM or a triple O style would have been like one size smaller than a dreadnought.
Okay. So Dave is trying to get this to fit into the body. He has to custom fit a blank.
We're still a little too tight. I don't want to break the bridge by being too tight.
So this is the old bridge piece. And he's just trying to match that in a bone to give it a little bit better tone quality and to set it up properly. So when you buy a premium guitar and they use premium products like bone pins, bone saddle, bone nut, what percentage of sound quality do you think that amplifies your product? 20%, 10%?
I think it's so subjective. There are people who can hear the most infinitesimal thing, or at least they say they can. There are people who could not hear the difference. You give them a $100 guitar, you give them a $5,000 guitar, and they can't hear it.
Really?
So it really depends on the person and what they like. And some people love the inexpensive guitar and can't hear. Look, there's lots of debates. If you go on the internet, you'll have, why is that guitar $5,000? It's no better than my $200 guitar. Well, if they want to believe that, then.
Okay. Well, from what I understand, when guitars get older, they age and the sound quality improves.
Correct.
Especially.
When you break in the guitar, that is usually a good year. You have a solid woods. It's a year plus to break in a guitar.
Wow.
And then you're right, over the years it will continue to open up.
Now, one thing I notice I'm pretty sensitive to, if I have my guitar sitting even for a few days, and I pick it up, the quality won't sound that great unless I play it for about 10, 15 minutes, and then it will start to open up and resonate. And once it starts to resonate and flex, everything is like magic.
Yes, sometimes I hear that as well, especially if I haven't played it in a while. And that can be the top, and that could also be the strings that are starting to age.
Mm-hmm.
I had that nice custom acoustic guitar that I bought 25 years ago. Once I started building guitars, I had no time to play it.
Oh.
So it went under the bed. Then once I had built my first arch top, then I played that.
Mm-hmm.
So 20 whatever years later, as I'm preparing to move here, that guitar was almost unused. I used it a little bit the first year I owned it.
Wow.
So I sold it to a buddy.
Oh, no.
Well, no, and the reason for the story is he played it constantly.
Oh, he did?
Broke it in. It had never really gotten fully broken in. So the first year that he played it, it opened up a lot more. So even though it had been mostly sitting for 20 plus years,
oh my gosh,
he broke it in then.
It still could break in later. That's amazing. So did you play it after? Did you get to play it later?
No, I see him, on Facebook. He's back and forth, and I see him once in a while. He gigs a little bit, and so he'll take the guitar, and I shouldn't have sold that guitar.
Oh, yeah, it happens.
I really think I should have sold it to you for more.
Would you ever build another one like that, do you think, or not?
I didn't build that one. That one I had purchased.
Oh.
That was a custom reload. That was before I was building. And since it spoiled me, when I got to the point where I wanted to have an arch top, I knew I could not afford an arch top of that quality. And that's what motivated me to say, let me try to build it.
How much more money is an arch top versus a regular guitar? How much more?
A lot.
Is it?
Yeah. A hand-carved arch top, you start with, in fact, start with an inch-thick piece of spruce. This is not, and you start with an inch-thick, let's say, maple. So the materials alone are much more expensive because you've got a thick block of really high-quality maple or spruce or whatever you're using.
Okay.
Spruce commonly. So you're already starting with, hundreds of dollars or more in material costs, and then you are hand carving that, and that top is the top's about 20 years old. So one of these days it'll sound great because it is aged now.
Nice.
20 years.
And when you carve it, you have to measure all the different times to get it the same thickness throughout, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Or whatever thickness you want it to be.
And that would be a lot of work to do that way. My gosh.
So yes, an arch top guitar. It's actually handmade. Now, like everything in life, you get into definitions of what handmade is. But it's easy to go from $5,000 to $20,000 and beyond.
So, are you up for making guitars for people, or are you more just doing repairs?
Well, I am more just doing repair. I am up for it, but it's sort of like, you want to custom hire me to do it. A, it's not going to be cheap. B, maybe you get something in a year. And for most people, that's not,
Right.
Especially in the Philippines. When I'll hear from Filipinos and they'll say, and I'm usually I discourage them because I go, if I'm going to make a custom guitar for you, you're going to spend between $1,500 and $2,000.
Right.
And that usually ends the conversation.
Yeah, I would imagine
I enjoy doing it. There's no point in my doing it on the cheap.
Right.
Let me get cheap woods, cheap materials, cheap tuning machines, cheap hardware. No, I don't want to do that. Therefore, I can't make you a $300 guitar.
Right. I totally get it.
It isn't even just about my labor, which I think is for fun. But it's not worth it. If I'm going to make a real guitar, I'm going to use the best ones I can get. So I'm spoiled.
Yeah,
Therefore,
I hear it.
I'm going to charge you for that.
Mm.
And
Hey, I did.
even with foreigners, look, nobody wants to spend $2,000 on a guitar. They just don't, and I understand that. And so this will be for me when I'm done.
Right.
I'll view it as it's mine. And if somebody says I love it, I will give you $2,000 for it. Then I'll sell it. But otherwise, so this stuff, this is really helpful to people. All the musicians have a guitar. They can't get them fixed. They can't get them set up. And in a day, I can have them back and running, and that's cool.
That is cool. Now, for me, Dave, when I did the custom show cars, my materials alone would be $1,000 to $1,500 just in the materials.
Right.
I bought the best materials. I said to the people, if you want a good quality job, that's what I'm going to do. If you want a crappy, well, then please go somewhere else because my name is attached to that.
Yeah, I can't make an arch top. I don't think for under $1,000 in material costs. I can get a flat top for that. But I can't because by the time I buy the top and the back and sides, I've got hundreds of dollars. I might have $1,000 in that, but certainly I have hundreds of dollars. So yeah, once you've done that, there's no point then cheaping out and putting a $20 pickup on it. It doesn't make sense. So you get the best of everything.
You got it. Rock and roll.
So yes, if I do an arch top, $1,000 is probably my minimum material cost. I mean, I used to be crazy with this. This came from Germany. Because I asked my mentor, who was selling, I don't know when, but now $20,000 arch tops, where do you get your wood? She told me the name of the guy. So I said, okay.
Oh my gosh.
I called him up in Germany. He says, what are you calling me for? I said, I want you to, okay.
That's pretty cool.
I bought a couple of tops. One I built 15 years ago, and the other one I have.
Nice.
I guess my point is that, yeah, you go to crazy lengths and spend a lot of money, but then, it's fun. But I'm not crazy. I'm not giving it to somebody for nothing if I go to that shop.
Absolutely. Yeah, you gotta make it worth your while. Otherwise, what's the point?
I keep my repairs very inexpensive. I keep the setups a fraction of what you pay in the U.S. or the U.K. or whatever, and people can afford it.
Right. And you enjoy it, and it gives you something to do.
That's right.
So it's a win-win.
Almost. And then I'll start to put it out.
All right, so if you guys want a bone saddle or nut, look at how much work it takes to make this because you have to constantly test fit sand to get a good fit. And if you don't take the time to do that, well, then you're not going to get that. So
you could use a grinder. That would go fast.
There you go. See, you heard it out of his mouth first. You could use a grinder. All right. So Dave, thanks for having us. Thanks for taking the time. And we're going to just leave Dave at his devices and let him finish at his own speed. And we'll get the best job that way. So thanks, Dave. Thanks for being on the video today.
Thanks.
And if people want to get a hold of you, can you give us some contact information, a website?
So my Facebook page is Dumaguete Guitar Works. That's the easiest way to see what we do and to send me a message.
Okay. So Dumaguete Guitar Works. All right. Great. Thanks, Dave. Thanks again.
Thanks for Nice little end on this thing.
It's a good little guitar for the money.
It's absolutely a nice guitar.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for doing such a good job. It plays great. You get to do my second and my third guitar.
All right.